G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm interviewing Simon Davies from Bastion Brands based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Simon.
Thanks, Troy. Great to be with you.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Olivia from the PR Hub put us in touch. Thought you might be another great guest to come on. They've put a few guests forward to us. So really
yeah.
So tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so we're a marketing services business or advertising agency, but we do a little bit more than that. We focus in the health industry. So we niched the business about 5 years ago. So we work with pharmaceutical companies, consumer health businesses, medical device businesses, and we do their marketing and also a thing called medical education.
Right. Okay. And what's the revenue model? Is it mainly retainers, project-based work?
Yeah, it's mainly project-based work, but we have long-standing clients that we've had for a long time. And if you win a brand of theirs, you tend to continually work with them.
Right.
So you're not like trying to get new projects all the time.
Yep. Great. Okay. And I assume being big pharmaceutical companies, marketing is obviously key. So they'd have nice, juicy budgets, a good segment to be focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, the health industry, it's a very important industry, and you've got to explain your products well. So, yeah, there's if you're doing a good job, there's enough work in it for sure.
And tell our audience how you started out.
Yeah, so I started in advertising a long time ago, in about 2003. Got my first job. I begged them for a job because I couldn't get one. It took me about 6 months out of university to get a job. Anyway, I worked in agencies for about 5 years on my own. Then after 5 years working at different companies, I thought I would go out on my own. So I had a family friend who called me randomly one day, who actually had a funeral services business. So there you go. Exciting. And it was exciting. And he said, could you help me with my marketing? And I said, oh, yeah, I reckon I could do that. So I started helping him with his marketing. And, I did that for a couple of years, and I had a mate who had a design business, and I would try and get clients for his business, and I'd get a percentage of the revenue. And so I learned a lot about having to add value to basically earn $1 to buy a coffee. Like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't make any money. Then I went into partnership for 3 years with a few other guys. We built a business, and then we split it up, and I started this at the end of 2012.
Right. So almost 9 years old. Yeah.
We're almost 9 years old now. Yeah, this business. Yep.
And do you have business partners in this current business?
No, it's just me.
Yeah. Was that something you deliberately wanted to do in the next business you went into? Yeah,
I think, at one point I had a business partnership where we got up to 6 or 7 partners, and it was good for a few years. It's fantastic. But I think sometimes when you got a lot of partners, 7 of you walking down the street, 3 can turn left, 2 can go straight, and 2 can turn right. And that's fine, but it means that it's hard to wrangle everyone together. So I've enjoyed, not having partners, but I've always had fantastic teams with me and fantastic people.
Yep.
And that's the absolute critical piece.
Yeah, I totally agree. And how old were you in 2012 when you decided?
So I was 32.
Yep. Great.
Yeah.
And do you have some key numbers that illustrate the growth over those 9 years?
Yeah, well, we've grown a lot. I mean, back then it was me, and now we have a full-time team of 35, almost 40 staff now. So Wow. It's grown a lot. a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But in terms of even in the last sort of 12 months, we've actually grown our revenue about 60%.
Yeah.
So it's been, there's been stages of growth of maybe say 20% a year. And then we had a big one in the last year. And it just varies on the year, to be honest. But every year we've grown.
Yeah, that's great. No, because I was going to ask that what the impact was for you for COVID. I've had some other people in the healthcare space that said it's just been a boon for them the last 18 months.
Yeah, it's very lucky that we'd set up the business, years before focusing on health. So, and obviously during COVID last year, when March came along, it did affect our clients quite significantly for the first few months. We did see a big drop in revenue, basically because, there was no conferences on, there weren't sales teams on the road, so there was a lot of difficulties. But over time, the health businesses didn't necessarily get as affected as other companies because people are still spending money on health, and the government subsidises a lot of health. So we were lucky that we could then also work from home relatively easily. So we're very grateful for that. And it allowed us to kind of focus and be able to bring on a lot of new clients, to be honest.
Yeah, great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I never think that I've necessarily succeeded, to be honest, Troy, because I think if I thought that, we'd probably go backwards.
Yep.
Maybe it's about not jinxing yourself, but also, it's like a ultra marathon. Seriously, and you have good times and you have tough times, and nothing lasts forever. So I don't look at myself and go, oh, wow, it's a massive success. I look at it as part of an ongoing journey, and you've always got to be putting in a great effort for it to be going okay.
What does success look like to you then?
In a business point of view, success for us is to be the number one health agency group in Australia. And we're not far off that. We've got a number of really great competitors, but we want to be the dominant player. So we have offices in Melbourne and Sydney at the moment. We want to grow more. And why we want to grow is because we want to be able to provide our clients with the best possible talent and the best possible understanding of their market to help their businesses. At the same time, we want to be the biggest because we want to have opportunities for our team. We want to be able to move them around. We want them to be able to have a career with us. And so that's business success. But for me as well, I've realised that you've got to have success really if family is your fundamental and your health. So if you don't have those two things, kind of irrelevant being successful in business. So you got to get that balance right, I reckon, which is hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's a question coming up later. The perfect question for you. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Depends on the business. But I think when you're marketing a fast-growing business, you've got to be very clear on what you stand for. Very, very clear, and get that positioning out into the market. These days, obviously, channels online are very successful. Like for us, LinkedIn's really good because all of our current clients and any potential clients are all on LinkedIn, and it's the same for potential new employees. So for us, LinkedIn's very important. But, how I kind of grew it at the start was, to be honest, old-fashioned relationships and a lot of coffees and a lot of getting around and just meeting people. And I think that is really critical when you're starting. Yeah,
I agree. And you've recently started using the Net Promoter Score, haven't you, in the last few months? And you've got your number.
Yeah. We literally did a survey of clients about 4 months ago, and we had a Net Promoter Score of 29, plus 29, which is the first time we've ever done it. So that's our baseline. So that's a pretty good score. But from that, we know there's a number of things we've got to improve on. So we're going to use that probably every 6 months to do a check-in.
Yeah, that is a good score for the audience that aren't aware of Net Promoter Score. It's not a percentage; it's a positive or negative. You can Google it. I think I wrote a blog post on our website there, but it's very hard to get around the 30s. It's amazing if you hit the 50s, and exceptional if you're 70 or above. And it's very hard to sustain, those numbers. So well done.
Thank you.
And how did you fund your business?
I funded it the old-fashioned way, which was literally through cash flow.
Yep.
So we've never borrowed significant amounts from the bank or got investment from anyone, including family. None of that. Literally started small. The good thing with these sort of businesses is you don't need to go and buy inventory or anything. You can literally start it from your one-bedroom apartment. So over time, we've just built it up and just reinvested the cash flow back into the business to keep growing. So that's how we've done it.
Yeah, very smart. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I would definitely do something in health. I think health is, it's 10% of the Australian GDP. It's
wow, is it that high?
Gee. That high, 10% of the Australian GDP. We've got an aging population. The government subsidises a lot of things in health. And the fact is, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So it's a pretty good area. Whether it would be exactly this business, maybe not. But I think there's a lot of things within it that you could do. So definitely, I would look at it.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I think it's about juggling a whole heap of different things at one time. That and going, well, what do I really need to focus on? And I always thought, there's a lot of problems, but if we don't have the revenue, then we're going to die.
Yeah,
literally. So that is the number one thing. If you don't have enough sales, you can't pay everyone. You can't pay your suppliers. So you got to get that sorted. But we've had a lot of stress when things like global clients have decided to realign their business with a global agency, and that's meant we've lost business overnight. We've had times where we've lost a number of key staff, which is very stressful. So there's a lot of times, but the older I get, I kind of realize you just really got to look after yourself and try and take it with a grain of salt and realize that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Because everything just keeps moving.
Yeah.
So
change is the only constant, as they say.
Yeah.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
As we've gotten bigger, I think you really got to be clear on the structure of the business and really clear on the roles and responsibilities of your team and working really closely with your team. Like, we're lucky that we've got awesome people who are really committed, really smart, go-getters, but you've still got to be very clear with everyone. And I always have this saying, if two people are responsible for something, no one's responsible. Yeah. You got to have very clarity on that, and we're still working on that because it evolves all the time. So I think that's something that you got to get good at, because when you start out and you don't have any team, well, it's sort of just you trying to get it going. But as you build it over time, you've got to develop your leadership skills and be able to really get a team rowing in the same direction, which is challenging.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you're at 35 or 40 FTE now. So roughly what number of FTE did you really start to work on that organizational excellence, I guess, and the structure?
We're working on a lot more over the last year. When there was 15 or so, and we were kind of in the same office, you sort of everyone can be on everything, and it's not as hard. Yep. But when it gets bigger and you can't be on everything, we have someone who runs all our accounts in Sydney and another one who runs them all in Melbourne. We have an operations person, we have creative director, we have a head of medicals. We have a lot of senior people, and you've got to really make sure you're structuring it in the best way, and that's challenging.
Yeah, and it can be different for different industries and business growth stages, whether you align that by geographic region or by functional unit. Yeah, and there's no one, there's no exact way of doing it. You kind of got to talk with each other and work it out together. I think the key is engaging with your team and realizing that I don't know all the answers. We've got to talk about it. And what do you think? And when you do it as a group,
you tend to get better outcomes.
Yeah, totally agree. And they've got more buy-in, and it takes the
Yeah, correct.
yeah. And what have you enjoyed the least about managing the fast growth?
Good question. I think over the last year for us, because of the pandemic, we hired or used to hire a lot of people from the UK and Europe, and that has been closed off for obvious reasons. The borders are closed. So, you know, to there's not as much talent in the market here. Like there is still great talent, don't get me wrong, but there's more competition for it, and I think that's been a difficulty. And if we had those borders open, I think we could, probably have been able to grow even more.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How COVID has impacted different industries. I know hospitality, for example, you wouldn't think, but it's going through the same crisis. Can't find staff because everyone after COVID a lot of them lost their jobs and decided, well, I don't want to go back to it.
Yeah, and I think I've got some friends in hospitality as well, and a lot of the backpackers, they're just not here.
Yep.
So they've got a lot of difficulties, and then they're open for a few weeks, and then they're locked down for a few weeks, and so it's impossible to retain. So I think that's a huge issue for Australia. Like, we've been built on migration, and the last 2 years, I believe, it's obviously been a net negative. Like, we just haven't had enough people coming in, and I think it's hard to grow and make the most of this rebound if we don't have access to more and more talent.
Have you considered using remote talent, or they really need to be in person for a lot of the client meetings?
We haven't considered it. They don't need to be in person. They can be virtual, but I think, for our teams to work effectively together, because we always work as a team and we separate into little teams, you kind of got to be, in terms of the right time zones and all those sort of things have got to work. And for us, we just haven't considered that, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you love most about growing a small business?
I love the competition of it. I love the fact that it grows more than you think it would. I love, just having a crack and seeing what happens. It's like you're building a piece of art or something in a way. Like you're kind of building something. It's like, wow, look at this. How did this happen? And so it's exciting. And I think another great thing is, having a great team and everyone working on it together. That's really amazing. Like we're all in it together, and just that camaraderie and that teamwork is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm similar. I love growing small businesses, but sometimes I bitch and moan to my mates in the trades. My brother's a plumber in Melbourne, and know a few builders, and so sometimes it would be good to actually build something physical that people could see, as opposed to a very intangible thing, which is a small business.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It sort of feels like, like creating something is pretty cool. Like, I think the teamwork and the camaraderie, I think, is probably the other cool thing.
Yeah.
Just great fun.
And what has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I think one of the biggest things is getting the most out of your team and becoming a better leader and trying to step back and work with them, because a lot of the time they can be better than you at a lot of things, and they just are. And just trying to so the mind shift change is it's not about you, it's about the team, and it's about how can you set an environment which allows people to flourish. And for us, we've had a lot of great people that have been able to really, really flourish. And so setting that environment is the big mindset change.
A lot of owners have an issue with letting go, delegation, control. Did you suffer from that at all? Or
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone does. And I don't think anyone who's probably done well in business wouldn't have a bit of that. Like you have to. But you also will stifle your growth if you're completely controlling everything, because it's not possible. So you've got to just set the parameters and be able to have good, strong conversations with each other if required, and just go for it.
Yep.
And let people flourish.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Discipline. I just think it's the most important thing. You got to have the discipline to focus on the right things, because you can get distracted with a lot of things, and focus on the activities that are driving the success of your business, and also discipline in terms of keeping your health strong, and discipline in terms of the meeting schedule during the week and all these things. I just feel like discipline is really key, really key.
Yeah, it's especially if you're having a shitty day or week, you're sick, you're tired, or you're just a bit over it, to have that discipline, just get up, get into it, and keep going, keep trucking.
Yeah. And we all have that, You have days where you're not feeling good, or something's happening in your personal life, or whatever it might be. It's just normal, but you just got to just keep grinding away. And it's not sexy, but if you can do that, results come.
Yeah, and back on focus, well, I was certainly bad at that. Well, my business partners and I were certainly bad at that early on in our career. So much so, our holding company we had 3 or 4 tech companies. Our holding company we named Opportunity Junkies, and if that doesn't say ADHD and lack of focus, I don't know what does.
Yeah. And I think, look, and I still battle with that daily. Like, I'm going, is this the right thing to be focused on? And I know I can, focus on the wrong things sometimes, or be frustrated at something and it takes over. But you got to keep going back, going, well, what can we do here? Like, write your list and just move on with it.
Yep.
Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course and add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah. Again, as I said, like, the team's the most important thing. Getting the right people is the most important thing, and then helping provide an environment where they can flourish. So heaps of mistakes. I think, one of the key things is we're very clear on our mission. We're very clear on our vision. We're very clear on our values. So when we're looking to hire people, we're always trying to measure them based on our values and seeing, have they lived those type of things in their lives? Because I think in the end, if you can get them right, you're more likely to have success. I think as well, some mistakes I've made, we have made, rushing to hire people because you think you just need them really quick, and
warm body syndrome, they call it.
Yeah, and we were I was having a conversation with someone before. We're like, we're going to hire someone. Let's just do it. I'm like, yeah, but are they really right? And we both think in our gut, no, they're not really.
Yeah.
So don't do it, because we've had plenty of times where I've thought, I'm not really that happy. And then we do it, and then it never works out.
No.
And then it causes you way more problems. Sometimes you've got to wait and just get the right people, because if you can do that and they fit in well, it's a better place for everyone.
The massive chasm between A and B players, isn't there?
Massive.
And back on, you're trying to protect or look for people that align with your values. And that can be hard to, interview and recruit for. And often I think all you can do is just get them talking as much as possible to catch them out, in case they are an arsehole. But I remember reading about this CEO of a big financial institution in the US a while ago, and down to the last 2 or 3 candidates, for a very senior, very highly paid role. And he would take them one-on-one, each take their turn. Effectively the final kind of informal interview, for lunch around the corner from the office, this shitty diner. And he knew the manager, and the manager knew every time he brought someone in that he had to fuck up the order. So they could see the subtleties of how the candidate handled the wait staff, not the manager per se, because they get the wait staff to come over and, stuff up their order or whatever. And he said the number of times that he's knocked people out because of the way they've treated people that are, in air quotes, perceived below them.
Oh, wow.
A great gatekeeper.
That's very smart. Yeah, and I think, doing something like that actually gets the people or you out of the artificial environment of an interview into the real world. And so I think that's really smart. I think, you got to just trust your gut. And the reality is I've found as well, you're going to get things wrong.
Yeah.
And like, if you've got a strong culture, people can opt out and that's all right. You're never going to get it all right. And sometimes you get people that you thought, didn't think that much, and they've turned out to be absolute superstars. It is the most challenging part of the whole business.
Yep, I agree.
For anyone in business.
Yep, totally agree. That's one of my sayings. People are the hardest thing in small business, and where the values acts, can't do it on your own.
Correct.
Speaking about culture, what are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, so like I said before, in terms of having a very clear vision of where you want to go, having very clear values, and we have a monthly award on who's living the values the most, and it's voted by everyone in the team. So it's not voted by me or the management team; it's voted by everyone. Doing a lot of training, professional development. People want to see that they've got opportunity. We have professional development plans for everyone. So every 6 months they get a formal review, which I think is good. Really, really positive.
Great to hear and pretty rare in small business. That's fantastic.
Yeah, you just got to do it. Because I've found over the years, if you're not doing that, if people don't see development or just see where they're going and how they fit in and what is their role within our overall business, they're not usually going to last. So all that sort of stuff. It's been challenging not being in the office together, like since March last year. So what are we, almost 18 months? We've been in and out of lockdowns in Melbourne and Sydney. So that's definitely been a challenge. And people can get down and demotivated. And like everyone, I have the same sort of thing. Some days you're just like totally demotivated. So you've got to just got to have chats with people and encourage them to have breaks and encourage them to look after themselves and just talk about things, because it's not easy for anyone, I don't think.
No. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Yeah, so I was pretty bad at it for a long time. I was shocking. So before the pandemic, I would travel to Sydney almost every week for a few days a week. And I've got 3 young daughters. I have a 7-year-old and twins who are 4. And so a lot of travel, pretty tired and all that sort of stuff. And then the pandemic actually made me think about those things a bit more and kind of look after my health better by, doing things like meditation, exercise, and just spending quality time with my wife and kids and family and friends, and realizing how important those things are. Because if you don't have those things, it's sort of irrelevant, the business stuff. So I think it took me to about 39, 40 years of age to really focus on that. And that's sort of like a silver lining from the pandemic. And I feel like a few people have realised that and what they should really be grateful for. So, I just, you got to try and do it. It's not easy to do.
No, I totally agree. How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Heaps. Massive amount. Absolutely critical. So if I could say one thing that's been one of the huge reasons to help this be successful is reading a lot of books.
Yep.
I read a heap of biographies, heap of books about successful business people and what they've done. And just, as Tony Robbins said, the self-help guru, you've got to mirror others. So you look at that. So I've done a lot of reading. I did an MBA while I was starting the business, and, I learned a lot out of that. But you know what? I actually met a lot of people that turned out to be clients, some of my foundation clients. And without that, we wouldn't do what we're doing.
Yep.
I was also in a group called the Entrepreneurs Organisation, EO.
I've heard great things about that. Yeah.
Yeah, those sort of groups. I was in a group called the Marketing Academy in 2017, which was fantastic, like top marketers from Australia. It was like a year-long course. So always trying to do something on the side for development, because I think not only do you learn a lot of things, but you meet a lot of great people and you get inspired and you help others and they might help you. And so it's critical, absolutely critical.
Yep. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yes, many. So We have a chairman of the business, a paid chairman, who's very much a mentor to myself and our management team and is quite involved in the business. He's been involved for 6 years, so that's been like a paid mentor. Yep. But I've also had a couple of other mentors that I've sort of just met through different things, and we kind of get along with each other. So I go have coffee with them a few times a year, and it's quite informal. Like, you wouldn't even necessarily call it a mentor, but I will run things by them, and they're happy to provide their advice. And they're, maybe in their 60s or something, and they've been there, done that, and I've had some amazing insights. But I also think they get a bit out of it as well, because they learn what's going on in a younger generation. So it's a great thing to do. It's so important.
I think business owners would be surprised. A lot of people say, no, these people would be too busy. But especially once they're financially set up, successful, etc., and the pressure's off, a lot of people want to give back and help those people.
They do. They want to give back.
Yeah, not make the same mistakes they made.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, you just got to ask, because people make time, and people feel a bit flattered if you ask them, even if they're really, really successful.
Yeah.
Like, and some don't want to do it, but I remember reading the Steve Jobs book, and I think when he was something like very young, 14 or something, or 15, I can't remember the exact age, he looked up the yellow pages or white pages, and he found one of the Hewlett-Packard, the Packard guys' name, and called him and said, "Can you help me with this?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And he helped him. And he said, "You just got to ask.
Yep.
What's the worst thing that's going to happen?" They say no. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
But some will say yes. Yeah. And so you learn so much from people who've lived it. There's a guy called Ray Dalio, which is a famous...
I love his book of
Principles.
Yeah, Principles. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. Not
it's my favourite book.
Content mainly, but his New York accent's just very magnetic, I think, as well. But it's a great book, isn't it?
He's incredible, right? And so for people who don't know, he built, I believe it's the biggest hedge fund in America, right?
Yep.
And he's sort of giving back. He said, at this stage of his life, and he's perhaps about 70, he's written an amazing book, and he really wants to give back and teach others. And he said, when you're looking at people to learn from, whether it be mentors or whoever, you got to look at believable people. Yep. And he said a believable person is someone who's done what you are trying to do a few times successfully.
Yep.
I think the thing is, you can get opinions from a lot of people. That's fine. But you got to actually talk to people who've been there, done that, because then you really know, okay, that's what worked, that's what didn't. So I think that's a really critical point. Believable people.
Yeah, I agree. So you have a board of directors or advisors?
So I just have the chairman, and I have informal advisors, but it's not a full board.
Yep. How often do you meet?
With my chairman, it's actually every week.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Once a week. Yeah.
Was that always been the case, or just since COVID?
It used to be more about sort of monthly, but he's sort of got a bit of a broader role rather than just being a chairman. So that's probably why he's more. Yep. But originally it was sort of once a month.
And out of interest, is his background in the health space as well, or marketing?
It's in marketing and advertising, yeah. It's not necessarily health, but it's in very well experienced in this area.
Yeah.
And sort of 20 years older than me, so he's been there, done that. And he's a unbelievable person.
Yep. And you're one of the few we've had on that have actually exited a business. So you had 6 business partners in your last business. Do you have any advice for the audience listening? Anything you do differently exiting a business?
Well, I mean, for us, we split it up. So it wasn't exactly, it wasn't like it was an exit and we made a lot of money or anything. It was nothing like that at all. It was more, it didn't work and we split it up. My advice, if you're having partners, which a lot of successful businesses do, I think you've got to be very clear on what the vision is together, and very clear on how you interact with each other, and go in wide-eyed knowing that you're going to have to renegotiate regularly. And, one of my mentors said to me once, he said, a partnership can be like the same bed, different dreams.
That's good.
Which is good. I remember you saying that because I was considering, oh, do I get another partner or something? And he's like, same bed, different dreams. And I went, love it.
Yeah.
So they can really work. All I would say is you just got to be on the same page.
Yep. Yeah.
Or else it cannot work. And so for me, I have a fantastic management team who are awesome, who are, very bought in and get well rewarded. And it's all, so it's not about me, it's about the team.
Yep. That's good. Yeah. Picking your business partners can be as tough as obviously recruiting team members, but I think I've had 26 business partners across 13 businesses in three countries. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It's, and sometimes can bring out the worst in people. So you just got to go in wide-eyed and I think about all the possibilities and make sure you're cool with that.
All right, Simon, on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Great question. Getting enough sales.
Yep.
Like, it took years. I remember, one of our major clients, it took me 3 years to get one job out of them. I flew to their office 20 times. I spoke to all different people 20 times and presented various proposals. I think the 21st time they felt sorry for me and gave me a job.
Either that or the restraining order wasn't working.
So, like, you gotta have a lot of resilience, and you got to keep asking the question. And it doesn't no doesn't mean not. It might mean not now. And you got to refine and constantly get better. And you know how they talk. We've obviously recently had the Olympics, and they talk about like 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. It's like that's what you. Yes. It takes time, and you got to commit, and you got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, "Really, am I good enough?" And be honest, because you probably some things you're not good at. You got to get others to help you.
Yep.
So yeah.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
So Ray Dalio Principles is awesome. A lot of biographies. A really great biography was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who started Nike.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What I loved about that one is he wrote a whole book, nothing about all the successes of Nike, which obviously has been massively successful. It was all about the struggle for the first 15 years, which was before I think he IPO'd it in 1980, but it was really real and raw. And it's like, wow.
I haven't read it, but I know a little bit about it. He started really with selling sneakers out of the back.
Yeah, he was a runner. And he sold sneakers out of the back of his car.
At sports stadiums when there were big sporting events on.
Yeah, and he just, like, it took years. And I think, in the media, you hear all these, like, great stories of, look at this overnight success, and it's just not the reality.
20 years to become an overnight success, they say.
Yeah, and people who have been overnight success, I think, there are some people like that, but also they've probably worked 20 hours a day. So they've just, that 2 years or 3 years it took them would be like 10 years for anyone else.
Yes. Yeah. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I love a podcast called Pivot. There's a guy called Scott Galloway. He's an American professor at NYU, but he's also an entrepreneur. He's had a lot of businesses, and he's really, really, really intelligent. And it's a lot about US tech and all that sort of stuff, but it's interesting.
Yep.
So I love that. And also listen to a bit of Mark Boris. Yeah. I think he does a lot of good stuff for small business, especially for this audience now. Yes. Like, he does some great stuff online.
He's great. He swears probably as much as, or maybe a little bit more than I do. But yeah, he's a great interviewer.
He does a lot of great interviews. So I encourage anyone listening to this, with your own small business, Google him, and there's some great content.
Yeah. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I don't have a particular technology tool. I would honestly say, what the tool is to have a lot of enthusiasm and have passion for what you're doing. Yep. And educate yourself, because you are the tool to really get better. Because, technology stuff can come and go, but you've got to keep reinvesting in yourself and your team to get better and better.
Yeah, good advice. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
from when I started out 10 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, if you go back in time, you're about to start out in business, what would you tell yourself?
Believe in yourself more.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I remember going through a lot of stages. I'm like, am I really going to be able to do this? Like, this is bloody hard. And I think you got to believe in yourself. And another Steve Jobs thing, he said, you can only connect the dots looking back. He said this in a Stanford graduation speech. It's very well known. You can Google it. And I find that as well. Like, we don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us know. It's impossible to know. But when you look back, you go, it all connected. So I think on day one, you got to believe.
Yep.
You got to really believe, and then you got to really commit. And if you do both of them, you will have a chance.
Fantastic, Simon. Thanks for sharing your journey with us today. I think the audience got a lot of value out of what you've shared with us. Congratulations, not only yourself, but the management team and the wider team. 35 to nearly 40 FTEs is wonderful growth over the last 9 years. And congratulations.
Thanks, Troy. I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.